It started with a small thing, a lipstick stain on his collar that didn't belong to me. I stared at it in the bathroom light and felt my stomach drop like I'd stepped off a high ledge. My name is Rachel. I'm an interior designer, and this is the story of how my husband betrayed me and how I took back everything he tried to steal. If you love raw, real stories about love, betrayal, and getting your life back, hit subscribe now. I've got more like this coming every week. Before I tell you what happened, let me share something quick. 4 things anyone should watch for if they suspect their partner is cheating. These helped me make sense of it all. First, sudden secrecy. Locking phones, switching passwords, being vague about where they've been. Small walls tell big truths. For example, Jason started leaving his laptop screen down whenever I walked into the room. He'd cover his phone with a pillow. He said it was work stuff, but it felt like a guard around him. Second, changes in appearance that don't match. The story. New cologne, new clothes, new grooming. But it's not about self-care. It's about being seen by someone else. I remember him coming home smelling like jasmine once, a scent I'd never bought. He said it was a sample. It wasn't. Third, emotional distance. They're there but not there. You notice the pauses, the lost eye contact. Jason stopped asking about my day. He stopped listening when I talked. He was in the same room but somewhere else. Fourth, defensive reactions when you ask. Asking one question shouldn't feel like starting a fight. When I asked him, he snapped, "Why are you so insecure?" That phrase should have rung alarms in my head. Instead, I let shame quiet me. Keep those points in mind. They're simple, but they mattered when I needed to see clearly. Now, back to the night it all began. It was raining. That cold, annoying, Seattle rain that feels like it gets into your bones. I had spent the day at a client site, choosing fabrics while the crew painted baseboards. The house smelled like fresh primer and coffee. I came home tired, ready for the couch and something warm. Jason wasn't there. Again. He came in much later, the lights in the hallway soft behind him. He looked different. He always smelled clean. But that night there was something else. A perfume I didn't own, floral and expensive. He pretended nothing was wrong. I pretended too for a while. In the months before, little things had stacked up. Claire started showing up in our lives. She was Jason's new client, a startup founder with a big budget and a bigger laugh. She had long blonde hair and a style that made people look twice. When she called him to discuss sponsorships and brand partnerships, his tone softened in a way I'd only heard when he spoke to me on our honeymoon. That soft tone felt like a private place I no longer had access to. I remember the day I first met Claire. It was at a networking lunch. She smiled at me and said, "So you're Jason's wife? He talks about you." She meant it as a compliment. I smiled politely and told her about a consulting job I had just finished. Her eyes flicked to Jason and she said something like, "He's so lucky." It should have been normal. Somehow that moment felt like a small stone thrown into a calm pond. Ripples started. For weeks I tried to ignore it. I asked myself if I was being jealous, paranoid, petty. I told myself I had work to focus on. Naomi, my mentor at the firm, once told me, "You can feel 2 things at once, Rachel. Love and suspicion. Don't let one drown the other without answers." So I watched. I collected tiny details like a scientist would collect data. Then Sam, one of Jason's colleagues, messaged me. He was casual about it, like he didn't want to make a big deal. "Hey Rach, you around tomorrow? The team's grabbing dinner and Claire might be there too." His message felt like a hand on my shoulder. I went. I forced a smile. I watched them together. They were close. Too close. After that night, I couldn't pretend. I started keeping receipts, texts, little red flags that looked like breadcrumbs leading me to the truth. I found tickets for a concert Claire had invited him to, and a photo of them in a coffee shop at midnight. I didn't show him yet. I wanted more than feelings. I wanted proof. There were nights I sat on our kitchen floor and cried until I had nothing left. I cried for the life I thought I had, for the simple trust that had been my home. Lily, my best friend since college, sat with me on those nights. Lily has a laugh that can cut through fog, and she has a way of putting the world back into right order. "You deserve to be treated like the treasure you are," she told me, one night as the rain made patterns on the window. "But revenge doesn't have to be ugly. Make it elegant. Make it true." That phrase stuck with me. Make it elegant. I didn't want to humiliate. I wanted to reveal. I wanted to stand and show the world the truth and step out with my head high. While I collected proof, I also started living better for myself. I called new clients. I redesigned a small downtown loft that got featured in a design blog. Naomi praised my work and offered me a bigger project for a boutique hotel. At the gym, I started running again, not because I wanted him to notice, but because I needed to feel strong in my own skin. I worked on me. On the night of the company gala, I knew Claire would be there. It was a charity event, black tie, chandeliers, soft violin music. Jason had told me he'd pick me up at 7. I put on the dress that made me feel like the woman I was rediscovering. A deep emerald gown, simple lines, a silhouette that whispered confidence. Lily helped me with my makeup. "You look like a movie star," she said, and her voice trembled, because she knew how much this night mattered. At the gala, I walked in like I owned the room. People glanced, of course they did. I moved through groups, smiling, taking in the room. I watched Jason across the way. He saw me and smiled, that same crooked smile I had fallen for. It was effortless, practiced. Claire was at his side, her laugh loud, her hand on his arm. The sight of them together felt like a door slamming, but by then, I was ready. When Jason's team went up to speak, the room hushed. He was smooth, authoritative. He thanked his clients, he talked about growth, the future. I listened, heart pounding, then I stood up. I said, "Excuse me." My voice collided with the music for a second, then held. The room turned. "Before you go on, there's something I need people to know." I felt heat in my face, but my voice was steady. I pulled out my phone. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I read a few messages aloud. Texts where Claire had called him my favorite distraction, and where Jason had called her beautiful when he'd meant it only for the wrong reasons. These were not obscene messages. They were honest ones, and they were enough. Claire's face changed color. Jason went white. Murmurs rippled. I finished and set my phone down. The silence was thick, heavy. Then, with the same calm, I said, "I trusted this man. He betrayed that trust. I am not asking for pity. I'm showing you what betrayal looks like." I smiled at the crowd, then at him. "Good night." I left before anyone could respond. I walked out into the cool air and let the night wash over me. Lily met me in the car and hugged me. "You were incredible," she whispered. I felt proud, but the proud was not the same as victory. It was relief. He tried to call. He texted. He sent emails apologizing, saying it was a mistake, saying Claire was overdramatic. I didn't answer. 2 days later, he came to the apartment with a suitcase, pleading. "I made a mistake. I love you. I ended it," he said. His words were wet and urgent. I looked at him and listened to the way his voice cracked. There were times I wanted to let it go. I thought about forgiveness. I thought about how many years we had shared. But the memory of how he touched someone else like he'd once touched me, that image wouldn't leave. I knew letting him back would be like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. So I left. I took an Airbnb for a while. I moved slowly, quietly, with care. I spent nights with Lily and days with clients. Naomi offered me a corner office at the boutique hotel project. She said, "You're brilliant. Don't waste your light on someone who keeps a blindfold on." I painted, I designed, I put new life into old rooms. Each finished project felt like a stitch in my heart. In the weeks that followed, news got around. Claire lost trust, or at least the sheen of it. Jason's team saw him differently. He called into HR meetings, explained away, begged forgiveness that was not his to take. Some people took his side, some didn't. It didn't matter much anymore. What mattered was me finding myself again. One afternoon, months later, I received a note. It was from Jason's mother. She wrote that she hadn't known, that she was sorry if she ever made me feel invisible, that she hoped I was well. Her words were polite, soft. I folded the note and kept it because I wanted to see it again the day I had fully moved on. I also saw something else years after, not about Jason, but about myself. On a cold winter morning, I walked into a completed hotel lobby I had designed. The marble was warm under my shoes, the light fell just so, and guests were sipping coffee. A couple stopped in the space, and she whispered to her partner, "It feels like home." I stood back and felt something quiet bloom inside me, pride, and a deep, gentle happiness that had nothing to do with anyone else. Revenge for me was not a speech or a public shaming alone. It was rebuilding. It was letting truth live in the light and then using that light to make myself brighter. It was moving from a place of hurt to a place of power. That's the part people don't always talk about. They talk about the moment of exposure, the roar of reaction. But the quiet life you build after, that's where the real victory lies. If you're in the middle of something like this right now, you don't have to rush. Gather your facts, protect your heart, plan with your head, and act with dignity. Make choices that the future you will thank you for. And one more thing. Don't confuse revenge with cruelty. There's a sharp line. Revenge can be just truth and self-respect wrapped in calm. Keep your standards high. Rise. If this story touched you, please like this video and leave a comment telling me what you'd do in Rachel's shoes. Subscribe for more true-to-life stories about betrayal and the best kinds of payback, the ones that rebuild you. Thanks for listening.